Hello, hello, hello. We are back with Chapter 3, Applying Rational Numbers, and we are talking today about Lesson 7, Dividing Fractions and Mixed Numbers. So, dividing fractions and mixed numbers is very much like multiplying fractions and mixed numbers. You just have to follow these steps. So, step 1 is to write any mixed number as an improper fraction. Okay, so boom. So looking at this first problem here, 1 1/8 divided by 1/3, we would change this mixed number to an improper fraction. So 8 times 1 is 8 plus 1 is 9. So it's going to be 9/8 divided by 1/3. Okay, so that's the first step. You can do that. Step 2, it says to invert the divisor. Now this number right here, this is called the divisor. And when it says invert, that really means you take the reciprocal of it, which means you just flip it. So the reciprocal of 1/3 is 3/1, okay? So we're going to invert the divisor. So that's going to be 9/8, and then we're going to flip it. So instead of 1/3, it's going to be 3/1. And when you invert the divisor, then what happens is you just multiply and write the quotient in simplest terms. So once you invert it, then it just basically becomes a multiplication problem, and you do everything that you learned last lesson. So we would look to first cross cancel. We'd look at the 9 and the 1. Are there any common factors? And no. What about 3 and 8? And there aren't. So after you look to cross cancel, then you just multiply across. So that's what we're going to do. 9 times 3 is 27. 8 times 1 is 8. So, and then you put it in simplest form, and there's no common factors between 27 and 8. So that is our answer, but we could write this as an mixed number. 8 goes into 27 3 times, because 8 times 3 is 24, and there would be 3 left over between 24 and 27. There would be 3, so it would be 3 and 3/8 would be the mixed number. So perfect. Let's go ahead and try it over here. 1 1/4 divided by 3 1/3. So I see a bunch of mixed numbers. We have to change those into improper fractions. No problem. We're just going to multiply and add. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5/4, divided by, and then we have to change this as well. So 3 times 3 plus 1. 3 times 3 is 9, plus 1 would be 10/3. Okay, then we're just going to invert the divisor, which is this one right here. Right here, which is right here. So it's the one on the right. You just change it. 5, oh, whoops, I was writing with green. 5/4, and we do the reciprocal. And when we do that, then it becomes a multiplication problem. So we look to cross cancel. Boom. Is there any common factors between 3 and 4? The answer is no. What about 5 and 10? Yes, 5 goes into 5, and it also goes into 10. 5 goes into 5 one time, and 5 goes into 10 2 times. Now that we have cross-canceled, we need to multiply across. So we go 1 times 3, which is 3, and 4 times 2, which is 8. And that's in simplest form. So boom, there we go. Boom. Felt like it needed to be said. Okay, let's practice this some more on problems 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so here we don't have any mixed numbers. That's great. We can just get started. So we have 4/5, and we just need to change it to a multiplication problem. And to do that, we just invert this divisor, or, do the reciprocal, which would be 2/1. We look to cross cancel. Are there any common factors between 2 and 5? No. What about 4 and 1? No. So we just multiply across. 4 times 2 is 8. 5 times 1 is 5. And then this is in simplest form. The only thing we can do is it's an improper fraction. The number on top is bigger than the one on the bottom. So we can change it to a mixed number. How many times does 5 go into 8? It goes in 1 time, because 1 times 5 is 5, and there are 3 left over. So it would be 3 over, and you keep that number 3 over 5. So 1 3/5 is the same thing as 8/5. Perfect. Let's go on to number 2. So we have 5/8 divided by 5/6. No mixed numbers, cool. So we're just going to invert this, and it's going to be 6 over 5. So we just flip it. And when we flip it, it becomes magically a multiplication problem. So we look to cross cancel. Here, is there any common factors between 5 and 5? Yes, there is. 5. 5 goes into 5 one time. 5 goes into 5 one time. Perfect. What about 6 and 8? Is there a common factor there? Well, they're both even, so that means that 2 goes into them. 2 goes into 6 3 times. 2 goes into 8 4 times. Now that we've cross-canceled, we need to multiply across. Here we go. 1 times 3 is 3. 4 times 1 is 4. And there you go. There's the answer, 3/4. And that's in simplest form. Okay, on to problem number 3. I see a lot of mixed numbers that we need to change into improper fractions, so let's just go ahead and do it. All right, cool. 2 1/2 divided by 1 3/4. So we're going to multiply 2 times 2 is 4 plus 1 is 5 over 2 divided by 4 times 1 is 4 plus 3 is 7 over 4. So 4 times 1 is 4 plus 3 is 7. Okay, cool. So we changed them into improper fractions. Now what we need to do is we need to flip this and change it into a multiplication problem. So when we flip it, it becomes 4 over 7, and we just multiply. So we look to cross cancel first. Is there anything we can cancel out with the 5 and the 7? And the answer is no. What about the 4 and the 2? Do they have a common factor? Yes, they do. They both have 2. 2 goes into 2 one time. 2 goes into 4 2 times. So now that we've cross-canceled, we just need to multiply across. So 5 times 2 is 10, and 1 times 7 is 7. So 10 over 7 is the answer, and that is in simplest form, but we could change it to a mixed number, so why not? 7 goes into 10 one time. 1 times 7 is 7, and there would be 3 left over, and we keep that number on the bottom. So make sure you write both of these answers. I want you to have them both written down, the improper fraction and the mixed number. Perfecto. On to number 4. Let's go ahead and do this last one together. So there are some mixed numbers. So we're going to go ahead. First step, write them as improper fractions. Can do. 3 times 2 is 6 plus 2 is 8. So we have 8 over 3 divided by 5 times 1 is 5 plus 1 is 6. So 5 times 1 is 5 plus 1 is 6. 6 over 5. Perfect. Now we have improper fractions. Now we just need to change it into a multiplication. So we invert the divisor. We just flip this. 5 over 6. Awesome. Now we just multiply. First, we look to cross cancel. Are there any common factors between 3 and 5? The answer is no. What about 8 and 6? Yes, 2 goes into both of those. 2 goes into 8 4 times, and 2 goes into 6 3 times. Now that we have cross-canceled, guess what we do? We multiply across. Let's do it. 4 times 5 is 20, and 3 times 3 is 9. So our answer is 20 over 9, but wait, there's more. It's an improper fraction, so we can easily change this into a mixed number, which is what I want you doing. So 9 goes into 20 2 times. 2 times 9 would be 18. And so if 2 times 9 is 18, that means that there would be 2 left over that would make 20. So it would be 2, and then you keep that same number on the bottom. So 20 over 9 is the same thing as 2 and 2/9, and I want you writing both answers. So make sure you have the improper fraction and the mixed number. If you did, great job. Okay, now it is time for you to do some of these problems on your own. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, so where's our friend? Where's the pause dragon? Oh, here he comes, flying in. Okay, just reminding you that now it's time for you to pause your device, work out these problems, then press play and check your answers. Okay, we'll see you in a bit. See you in a bit. All right, we're back. Let's go ahead and get started with number 5. We have 3/5 divided by 3/10. So there are no mixed numbers, which is great. So all we're going to do is change this to we're going to flip this and change it to a multiplication problem. So, and we're going to invert this divisor, which then would be 10 over 3. Then we look to cross cancel. So is there a common factor between 3 and 3? The answer is yes. 3 goes into 3 one time. 3 goes into 3 one time. All right, cool. What about 5 and 10? Yes, 5 goes into both. 5 goes into 5 one time, and 5 goes into 10 two times. Now that we have cross-canceled, it is time to multiply across. Here we go. 1 times 2 is 2, and 1 times 1 is 1. So the answer is 2 over 1, which is the same thing as 2. So if you got that right, great job. Perfect. Okay, on to problem number 6. We have 7/8 divided by 1/3. No mixed numbers, so that's perfect. We can just get started. So 7/8, and we're going to change it to a multiplication. So we flip this divisor, or invert it. So it becomes 3 over 1. No problem. Then we look to cross cancel. Anything we can cancel out between 7 and 1? No. No common factors. What about 3 and 8? No. No common factors. So we've tried to cross cancel, but now it is time to multiply across. Let's do it. 7 times 3 is 21. 8 times 1 is 8. All right, so that's the answer. And that's in simplest form. There's no common factors. However, it is an improper fraction, so we can change it into a mixed number, which is what I want you doing. So how many times does 8 go into 21? It goes in, I want to say, it doesn't go in 3 times because 8 times 3 is 24, and that would be too much. So it must go in 2 times. 8 times 2 is 16. So between 16 and 21, how many are left over? And there would be 5 left over, and you just rewrite that number that's in the denominator over here. So that means that 21/8 is the same thing as 2 and 5/8. So make sure you're writing both answers. Thank you very much. Okay, on to problem number 7. Here we go, 5/12 divided by 1/2. And I love this problem because there's no mixed numbers, and that's fantastic. So we have 5/12, and we're going to change it into a multiplication problem, which means we're going to invert this divisor. It's going to become 2 over 1. And then it's just a multiplication problem, so we look to cross cancel. Any common factors between 5 and 1? No, there's a 1, so we're good there. What about 2 and 12? And the answer is yes, they have a common factor of 2. 2 goes into 2 one time, and 2 goes into 12 6 times. So now that we have cross-canceled, it is time to multiply across. Let's do it. 5 times 1 is 5. 6 times 1 is 6. So boom, there's our answer. 5 over 6. If you got that right, you are amazing. You are. You're very amazing. And I needed to let you know. Okay. And you get a little cloud. There you go. You're amazing. Okay, on to the next one. Let's see how you did on 8, 9, and 10. 8. Oh, we have mixed numbers. So first thing we have to do is change them to improper fractions. Not that bad. We can totally do it. 4 times 3, and then there we go. Plus add the 1. 4 times 3 is 12, plus 1 is 13. So this is 13 over 3. Divided by 9 times 1 is 9, plus 1 is 10 over 9. And then we just need to invert this and change it to a multiplication problem. No problem, we can do that all day long. So when we invert it, it becomes 9/10. We look to cross cancel. Is there any common factors between 10 and 13? And the answer is no, there is not. What about 9 and 3? Yes, 3 goes into 3 one time, and 3 goes into 9 3 times. Perfect. So now it is time, we have cross-canceled. It is time to multiply across. So let's do it. 13 times 3. Oh, okay. I'm going to take that off to the side. 13 times 3 and do that really quick. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 1 is 3. So 13 times 3 is 39. And then 1 times 10 is 10. So there you go. And that's in simplest form. You can't reduce that at all. So yes, 39/10. If you got that right, great job. But it is an improper fraction. So we can also write this as a mixed number. So how many times does 10 go into 39? Well, it goes in 3 times because 10 times 3 is 30. And between 30 and 39, there are 9 left over. So we write 9/10. So 39 over 10 is the same thing as 3 and 9/10. And remember, I want both answers, please. Thank you very much. Okay. All right, on to problem 9. We have 2 1/3 divided by 1 3/4. Mixed numbers, got to change into improper fractions. So 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. So 7 over 3 divided by, got to do the same thing here. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 3, 4, 3, that's 7. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 3 is 7. 7/4, perfect. And now it's time to invert this divisor. And we can invert it when we change it to a multiplication problem. And then it becomes 4/7. And then now it's just multiplication. So we look to cross cancel. Are there any common factors between 4 and 3? The answer is no. What about 7 and 7? Yes. 7 goes into 7 one time. 7 goes into 7 one time. Perfect. So now we just look to multiply across. 1 times 4 is 4, and 3 times 1 is 3. So the answer is 4/3. And that's in simplest form. But since it's an improper fraction, we can write it as a mixed number. 3 goes into 4 one time, and there's 1 left over. So you just keep the number on bottom. So 4/3 is the same thing as 3 1/3. Perfect. Okay, on to our last problem. 5 5/8 divided by 2 1/2. Perfect. The first thing we need to do is just change it into improper fractions. So we're going to multiply and then add. 8 times 5 is 40, plus 5 is 45 over 8, divided by 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5, so 5 over 2, okay? And then what we do is we change it to a multiplication problem, which means we're going to invert this divisor. So instead of 5 over 2, we're going to flip it, and it's going to be 2 over 5. And then we just look to cross cancel. So are there any common factors between 2 and 8? The answer is yes, 2. 2 goes into 2 one time, and 2 goes into 8 4 times. What about 45 and 5? Is there a common factor there? And yes, there is. 5 goes into 5 one time, and 5 also goes into 45 9 times. So now that we have cross-canceled, guess what we do? We multiply across. So 9 times 1 is 9, and 4 times 1 is 4. So there we go. There is our answer, and it's in simplest form as an improper fraction. And yes, since it is an improper fraction, we can change it to a mixed number. 4 goes into 9 2 times because 4 times 2 is 8. And between 8 and 9, there's 1 left over. And you just keep that number that's the same number on the bottom down here. So 9/4 is the same thing as 2 1/4. And if you got all of those right, great job. So proud of you. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.